Welcome to Sacred Rebellion. I'm Kim Andryc.
And I'm Lora Solomon. In this podcast, we defy convention and shatter the stereotypes of what it means to be healthy and holy.
It's time to rebel.
Let's do this. Coming up on this episode. Good morning, Kim.
Oh, good afternoon and good evening too. So
wherever you are, whatever it is,
yeah,
we're going to talk about one of our favorite things today.
And it's not death
or psychedelics.
It is relationships.
Oh,
sometimes I want to go relationships and sometimes I want to go relationships.
We have Dr. Heather Browne, who has worked with thousands of individuals and couples in psychotherapy, and she's published hundreds of journals. So she's a writer, she's a YouTuber, she has her own channel. She's been on ABC7 News, KDOC Daybreak, and in the Toronto Sun. Wow.
I know. She's considered a relationship expert in many forums. So we're really excited to have her here. Welcome, Heather. Welcome to the Rebellion.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, we love talking about relationships. Relationships seem to, in my experience anyway, point to opportunities we all have as individuals to, show up our best way in this world. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
I feel really honored to do it. I think working as a psychotherapist is really a very sacred place where people are letting you into parts of their lives that they don't know how to maneuver and really want to be able to respond to what's going on within them and outside of them differently. And so I'm blessed to be a person that they choose to carry through some very hard times. And I'm very grateful for the people who entrust me with that and the fact that God has as well. And so I work with individuals, families, and couples. I work a lot with infidelity, a lot with grief and loss, a lot with embodying who we are and who we can be to live our best life that we can.
Beautiful.
Wow, lots of juicy stuff there.
Yes.
Just like any one of those. Infidelity, we could talk about that for a few hours and why that happens and how to recover from that, and grief and loss, and so many good things we could jump in and talk about here.
Yeah, I always like to make it real, right? Like make it real as it relates to me and what my experience is. So, I was married for 24 years and I'm in a relationship now with a man who was impacted by infidelity. And I find that there are a lot of little triggers that happened as a result. So what guidance would you give someone like me, given that situation?
This is where relationship can really be unbelievably exquisite and also at the same time really scary and difficult. Because though you have not created the pain of the past, and hopefully you're creating the love of the present, for him, there's got to be a lot of fear and a lot of concern. And so what I share with people is it's not your responsibility in any way to heal him of what he has gone through. That's going to be his. But there's a really beautiful place if you're willing to do it and if he's willing to receive it, which is to recognize you get to help him heal some of those old wounds when you show him that the past is the past and that person was another person, and that your desire is to, in whatever way you can, hold him, care for him as he goes through it. I was molested by my father, and it had never come up in dating. But when I met my husband, he was different. And I said to him one day, I'm fearful I'm going to have a flashback. And he said, have you ever had one? I said, nope. And he said, well, then why would you be fearful? You are. And I said, you're getting in. And it was really a gift to have that pre-knowledge I was going to, because of course then I did. And Ted was laying on top of me. We were fully clothed. And all of a sudden, it was my father. And I threw Ted off of me into the corner. And I said, don't touch me. And it's this big guy cowering in the corner, really small. And I said, stay there. And then eventually I said, you can come to the edge of the bed, but don't touch me. And then I said, you can put your hands on my knee, but don't move them. And then I eventually said, you can hold me, but no groping. And then eventually I looked in his eyes and he just had tears pouring down his face, and he held me and he looked at me. And when I was finally able to have him be Ted, he said, what did he do to you? And I just broke. And in that moment, an incredible love for Ted broke free, but also the realization of my fear was no longer grounded. And there were a couple of reasons for it. He let me guide him completely, which I needed to. He listened, and he in no way reacted as if he was scared, shamed, concerned, worried, other than let me love you. And that was incredibly touching, healing, transformative. And I told him, I'm never going to have a flashback again. And he said, how do you know that? And I said, because you've given me a new future and a new reality for me. So when we can help someone find that bridge for themselves, yes, when we can help them find the bridge for themselves and they can share with us what it is that they need, we can then be in that place, a healing vessel. They're rare to have those moments in a relationship. Sometimes they never come. But to me, that's when a relationship really becomes blessed.
Wow, there's so much there. You know, I just heard you describe the importance of embodying safety in the present. And that is absolutely essential when you've had an embodied experience of lack of safety.
Yeah.
I was telling Kim, my story is a little bit different, but I also had experiences as a child of not feeling safe in my body. And one of the things that came up in therapy, you know, we were working through it, and the therapist said, well, why don't you just try with a foot massage, like receiving a foot massage? And so my partner and I said, okay, we're going to do that. And so I was very tense and anxious. And what I was most scared of is that he was not going to just stay on my foot. Like he was going to do, and he did. He kind of started going up my leg. And I was like, no, 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 no.
I think what you said is, we're done.
We're done. This exercise is over. And I jumped up and left the room. And he's like, what the heck is wrong with her? You know, but when back in therapy, it was like, that was the agreement, you know. And when you were describing how you, in that situation, when, you know, Ted was able to go across the room and then come back as you were inviting him back, and allow you to embody that experience of you're safe and you're in control. And that, but what the other person is invited to do, they don't have to do it, is to not take that personally. For example, Ted was able to be thrown across the room by you and realize it's not about him.
It didn't have anything to do with him.
And that is so challenging in a relationship, because, you know, if he had shame or a trigger about his own experience, then he could easily spiral into that, which is, I'm not wanted, I'm not loved, I'm not good enough, I'm dirty, I'm bad, like all that. And there's just, it's such a landmine, I guess and the invitation.
Well, and what's beautiful too is he never, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
He never once ever came back and ridiculed me on that, used it in any way against me. I literally was insane in that moment. And I called it Heather's psychotic moment, but I literally I was 100% in flashback. And he never, ever brought it up except with a moment of expressing love, which was beautiful.
What a gift.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, I mean, I was just thinking about any kind of trauma in that way is very difficult to revisit and so necessary. And, you know, I, I deal a lot um, I support the use of psychedelics to help people, revisit these traumatic experiences for the purpose of healing. But it's just so beautiful that a deep presence could be experienced by two people in that moment to bring about the same outcome, which is let me go back and kind of revisit my trauma and see it in a new way, and be able to deal with it with mature eyes and a mature heart.
It really is a growing up, because when that happens, part of you is stuck in that experience. It's like a case of arrested development. And this is what I've seen in myself and people that I work with too, is that the trauma occurs due to broken trust. And it can only heal in a trusting relationship. But so many people have walls about being close, letting people in. Like you said, you were letting him in. And it was because you let him in that you were able to heal in that deep way. But that's just terrifying, to kind of, if you've spent your whole life creating and building this safe wall so that never, ever, ever, no one can ever hurt you that way, then you get to choose, am I ready to take this wall down?
Well, and I think the reason
risk.
it comes up is because your psyche knows you are. And
That's good.
Yeah.
I kind of knew as I was coming through it that I was going to stay with Ted regardless, because I loved him dearly. But the staying with him was very different following that. And it's almost like an EMDR happening in reality for
Yes,
you,
exactly.
because you're rebooting your system.
It's
and changing that narrative. There's a type of therapy called redecision therapy. And when I first learned about it, I thought, oh, this is just, true haha, where you go through a very difficult situation where you were alone and something traumatic happened for you, and you share it, and then you go through it and you bring in whomever you want. You could bring in God, you could bring in Jesus, Mother Mary, the Easter Bunny, your best friend, your teddy bear, whomever, and you go through the exact same scenario but with your special person or special entity with you, and it changes it. And then what you tell the person following is, you can have that person, that entity with you at all times, because you now know what it's like to bring them. So it was kind of like Ted in a way did that, because it was a flashback. He changed the narrative of how scared and fearful I had been to, you're safe and I'm listening.
And holding space, just holding space for you to, at your own pace, just get, regrounded,
yeah. And I like the word reboot, because what I see is the way whatever this trauma is held in the nervous system. And that's why, although talk therapy can be great, talk therapy doesn't rewire the nervous system. You have to have an embodied experience somehow. And that's why I know a lot of therapists are using these other modalities like EMDR, and I think one of the tragic things about psychotherapy is that psychotherapists are not allowed to touch or do any type of body work. And I know several of my colleague therapist friends have gone to become a minister. So with their minister license, they can actually hold someone's hand or touch them. And I understand, that people got touched in a bad way in therapy. And so I get how it all happened, but it's an embodied recovery from trauma is an embodied experience. It's not a talking experience. And that's why, plant medicines can be a powerful reboot, because it's an embodied nervous system reset.
Right.
Yeah.
That
there's something very important in the individual's process if they need to be touched.
Yeah.
And I did. I needed to be touched. I did. I needed to be touched in the healing process because that's what had been so destructive.
Exactly.
So to not have that, it wouldn't have happened, because there were several things that were going off inside of me. But one was, my voice needs to be honored.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was, I get to decide how and when I'm touched.
Right.
And if I had talked about it with Ted, it wouldn't have been the same.
Mm-mm.
Because he was touching me. And it was the first time that I was in absolute fear panic mode being touched, where I wasn't violated by a man. And I hadn't been in fear panic mode very often because I didn't let myself get in a relationship after my father. But when I did, Ted was the one who allowed that experience to be beautiful. And it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened because it would have been the mental construct.
Exactly.
Instead of a physical reality.
And instead of an embodied experience that allows you to reset and say, oh, I'm being touched by a man and I'm safe. I'm okay. And even better, oh, and it's nice and I like it and I want it. I mean, right? Because we need touch.
Yeah. I love also that the recognition, and I suspect you experience this a lot in your work, but the recognition of not being willing to be in relationship because of the, for lack of a better word, the baggage that you carry from past experiences. So, so often I have girlfriends and, who are single, and there's part of them that wants to be in relationship, and there is a part of them that just will not allow it. So yeah, can you talk a little bit about any experience you have with that kind of situation?
Sure. I would go into the aspect of the will not allow. I think whenever we have a resistance, there's something there that we need to find out. There's whether it's a reality or not, there's something that's keeping us from being able to move fluidly. And so I would ask them to explore that. I'm sure it's probably something with intimacy and hurt and fear, but it's important that they give themselves that opportunity to honor whatever that might be. And then there's also the place of recognizing that because you have gone through something, it does not mean that you ever will necessarily go through something again. Otherwise, our life would end if all we were to do was go through one experience, or it'd be Groundhog Day. But our journey is to learn how to love ourselves and take care of ourselves. And if we choose to love others and be loved by others. So I would recognize the fact that they're fearful and they're scared. If they're choosing to not go in right now, my suggestion would be then give yourself the full embracing of this time is for you, instead of the resistance of it will not be this. Because when they're speaking into it will not be this, they're not giving themselves the opportunity for it to really be what it could be, which is I'm just going to have a love affair with myself right now. And I want to love myself completely and fully as much as I can. So I'm living that energy, which then will bring in somebody of a like energy, which is what I want. I will create myself being safe and kind and compassionate and intentional with myself in all the ways. And then when I find that I'd like to walk side by side with another, then at that point, great. But whenever we put up a block, they're necessary at times, but it's important for us to really look at what is that doing energetically for us and what is the message we're creating for ourselves in that. It doesn't have to be quite so strong. It could just be, I'm just not choosing to right now until I find somebody I would really like to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I would say most of my blocks have been unconscious,
Yeah.
right? Like I, I would, you know, pick one partner after another who was incapable of intimacy, thinking, you know, I remember one time I was like, I had all these books on intimacy. I had like a stack like that, like, you know, 20 books on like, and like deep stuff that therapists were reading, like on intimacy. And I was dating this guy and he was not much of a reader. And he had one book and it was like how to fix your faucet. It was like this little like book
Booklet.
on yeah, like a booklet. It wasn't even a book. It was like a pamphlet, you know. And he came into my bedroom and he said, "That's kind of intimidating," you know. So, but I thought I was some kind of intimacy expert because I had all these books on intimacy, and I was terrified of intimacy, which is
Yeah.
why I was trying to learn everything about it, you know, because I was terrified. And so, but I was like, oh, he's so afraid of intimacy. He doesn't know anything about intimacy. And I'm the expert because I have all these books. Anyway, I definitely had a block and was clueless.
There was a TV show, Dating Single Wives, I think it was called, from Australia. And the gentleman's name was Matthew who led it, and there were four women who'd either been divorced or widowed, and he walked them through dating once again. And what was really interesting was to watch the intimacy and to watch the places where the women did not allow themselves to have it. Simple things from saying hi to somebody on the street to on a date, completely oversharing and then thinking that's intimacy. And he sat down with these beautiful women with such love and compassion, and he talked them through it. It was videotaped, so it was helpful though painful for them to see. And he'd say, you know, do you think you were intimate there? And she'd say, yes, I told him all about my childhood and
Right.
and he said, but did you let him in?
Mm.
And it was beautiful to see. And so what I know I try to focus on for myself, and certainly with my clients, is, to me, intimacy is not, it's not how much you know. It's not even what you've been through. It's, will I bring you into this moment
Mm.
to share how I am feeling in this moment with you, sharing this. And there's no knowledge really from a book in that, because
I
it's the
know.
place of, ooh, okay.
You know what's interesting also, I mean, this is what I'm experiencing now in relationship. You know, I is for me, the intimacy that's challenging is sharing, you know, the shadow sides, the stuff you don't like about yourself. And I don't know, it was about a month ago, and I was talking to my partner, and I was saying something like, I had withheld something, you know, something bothered me, and I didn't share that it bothered me. And I was trying to explain why I hadn't shared it. And I said, I didn't want you to think that I was needy. And I went, let me back up. I didn't want you to know that I am needy. I don't even like to know that myself. It's like in that moment, I was able to see this truth about myself that's disgusting. Like I don't want to be needy. You know what I mean? But it's like knowing and accepting who I am first, and then being willing to be seen as that person. And I often, like Lora was talking about, just unconscious, like I'm frequently unconscious. And it's interesting because once I'm able to see it and accept it, it becomes a whole lot easier to share it with other people. But getting to the point where I see it and accept it, not I see it and then deny it, which is kind of my pattern.
Well, maybe he's in your life exactly for this reason.
Yeah.
Maybe he's in your life, he must be, to be bringing these awarenesses up for you. And if you let yourself say to yourself, I'm exactly where I am right now. I've lived the life I have lived, and I'm changing all the time going forward. Then the more that does come up, though it might be hard, the more then I have the opportunity to decide, what do I do with this? And it's none of his responsibility to do it. But if I share something with him, I'm going to have an idea of how much does he want to walk with me in this. And some things he won't. He'll say, go take care of it. And just be like, yep, that's for me. And some things he might say, like Ted did, just reached out and held me. There, I'm sure will be places, if you're choosing a great partner, because that is really what relationship is. Relationship, of course, it's beautiful when we adore each other and we're so great together and everything's smooth and wonderful and yummy. I mean, that's heaven. But the other side of relationship is, do I grow with you? Can I change with you? On the path that I'm on, is our relationship helping me become more of who I am to be? And do I, or do we come to these blocks, these roadblocks, these awarenesses of who we are, and then do we take that as an opportunity to say, oh my goodness. I said to my daughter the other day, I just realized that I don't receive your love as deeply as I can. And she said, oh, Mom, what made you realize that? And I said, nothing in particular, but I now see that I am capable of receiving love, and I'm sure giving love even more deeply. And she just went, oh. And I said, I know. But every single time we're together, I take a moment and say, let me go further. And she just goes, And I take a moment and I open up my heart and look into those beautiful blue eyes and allow myself to receive her more, and then also offer more. And she knows when it's happening. We both do. Because when healing is occurring, there's an energetic connectedness. Nepo, who's one of my favorite authors, wrote a book about, it's called The Book of Awakening. And one of the days is 2 heart cells beating. And there was some research where they put a heart cell in one Petri dish and one from a different person in another. And they were beating differently, and then they joined in a beat.
Yeah, resonance.
Which I fell in love with. And so to me, that's what's happening when you allow yourself to share where you are in that harder place, and the person's willing to be there in whatever way it is that they can and you desire. That's when your energies, your heartbeats join in that beautiful healingness, if the other person is able to do it and if you're able to receive it. So instead of looking at it, which I think we all do, as, I'm so scared and this is so hard and this is so dark and this is so challenging, what if you thought about it as, this is a gift of love for myself and for my partner if they want it, that we're going to change reality right now. I had a session with a man whose wife had like 20 surgeries, very disfigured, and her body did not look physically attractive. And she had a lot of shame about that. And he had a lot of shame about not finding her attractive. And it was painful. It was he loved his wife dearly, but it was painful. And so I said to him, can we be really risky with something? Can you really trust me? And he said, okay. And I said, I want you to go home and I want you to make love to every single scar that she has. And he said, what? And I said, yeah, I want you to kiss it, every single one. I want you to pray over it. I want you to bless it. And I want you to say to that scar, I love you. I love you because you have saved my wife's life. And without you, she wouldn't be here. You are the most beautiful scar. Then kiss it and then move on to the next. She called me the next day and she said, what did you do? And I said, I'm hoping something blessed. And she said, oh, Heather. And I just went, what if we look at it in that way? What if we look at these places where we're injured as it's a place to make love to it? And to treat it almost like it's our little child, like that wound is our little child. We're just going to love in it out of that reality. It's okay. You're scared. It's okay. You don't want to go. It's okay. You need me to hold your hand. I'm going to, because I love you. And it's going to be different because I am going to make it different right now with all the love and patience and compassion that I have for me and for my situation. I think
beautiful.
we'd look at it really differently.
What a sacred, rebellious way of dealing with a scar.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
At our own first.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm thinking about this woman, she had to be willing to receive that. So if she was herself thinking that her scars were ugly and unlovable, she would not have been able to receive that from him. So it does really require both people, the giving doesn't, and the receiving. I mean, it's just two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And it is, I think for me, it's a good reminder to that for me, receiving is also a gift that I can give. And you were talking about that with your daughter. When you are able to receive her love, you're giving her a gift.
Well, and if you think about it, and I haven't had this thought to just now, so bless you for this. We all want to be loved.
Yeah, of course.
And so if we don't allow ourselves to receive love, we are the one who's stopping it. So when we receive it, we're allowing ourselves to have more from the beautiful person who wants to share it with us. And then we're moving into the place of creating more, of course, of love for ourselves, for them, for the situation, and then the opportunity to love them back. But for some reason, we think that in not receiving love, we're going to feel more loved. And
it's a form of self-protection. That's where it comes from. I mean, babies are not born thinking that love is dangerous.
No.
They learn that, when sometimes people say they love you and then they hurt you. Oh, okay. That's confusing.
Well, love isn't dangerous, but people sure as heck can.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of, for most people, the most dangerous thing they've experienced is from people who say they love them.
Yeah.
And it's confusing. So it's like, okay, here's this other person who says they love me. Okay, they're probably going to want to hurt me at some point. So let me make sure I keep up a certain amount of walls so that doesn't happen. And then you're it's being human is complicated.
It is. Ted and I early on made a pact with each other, and it was beautiful. And I use it a lot in therapy, which is we vowed to each other, I will never intentionally wound your spirit. Lots of hurt went on in our marriage. I'd love to say there was lots of hurt went on, as it does in any marriage, before he passed. But he never intentionally tried to hurt me. Things that he did. And if he had thought about it beforehand, he would have recognized that 100%. But I also had the awareness that he was not doing it to hurt me. He was doing it simply because he was not thinking about me and the repercussions of it. But that is different than he's trying to hurt me. And that's a place in therapy that I really try to clean up for people. It's pretty rare that someone really wants to hurt the other. They normally just choose to not focus upon them and just focus on their own pleasure or desire. And that doesn't in any way lessen what it is, but there's a little thread that's important to look at and just ask yourself, did you do this intentionally to hurt me? And sometimes that brings a lot of clarity.
Yeah. And we were talking about this right before we started the podcast, about our mothers. And I'm a mother, we're all mothers here. I feel pretty confident that mothers don't wake up in the morning and think about how can I hurt my child? Like, mothers just don't do that. That's not, but we have been wounded by our mothers, and especially if we have a mother who suffered with mental illness, there can be a lot of chronic pain that happens. And I do think that really understanding that person never wanted to hurt you is so valuable.
It is still hard because you are hurt. But intentionality is so important to explore. Yeah.
Yeah. What an act of rebellion that is, right?
Yeah, for sure. Right? Yeah. Well, Heather, are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure.
All right. Our first question, what rules have you chosen to rebel against on your journey to health?
That anyone knows what is best for me other than me.
Good one.
And really honoring that. I think it's probably at all times, but I think in this day and age, it's very important to allow your spirit, your body, your mind, your heart to guide you on what it is that you choose to do and how you live your life.
Amen.
Yes. Never been a more important time.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be holy?
To be open to the recognition that we are all of God and spirit, and that is an absolutely beautiful truth, and that it is a gift to ourselves and to the world to allow ourselves to experience that as much as possible, and to be very gentle with ourselves and with others for how sacred that is and how very intimate and precious that is. At every single moment, we are love if we choose to be, and to recognize that.
Yeah. Last question. What do you want to say to a listener right now to help them rise up?
You are precisely where you are to be in this very moment. And everything that you have learned has got you to this moment. And in this moment, take a deep breath, thank yourself for all that you are, love yourself in this moment, and then say, okay, me, what's next? and let yourself do it and enjoy it.
Awesome.
Love it.
Dr. Heather, I know that you have, you offer therapy, you have some courses and a community. Do you want to talk about that just a moment?
Sure. Thank you. My website is drheatherbrowne.com, DRHEATHERBROWNE.com. And I have a weekly blog. I have a weekly newsletter. I do some workshops. I have a 6-week called Speaking with the Heart, and it is a conscious, compassionate communication online course coming in September. And the whole focus is to realize the beauty that we have in what communication is, that it's a love letter to ourselves and to others, and can be expressed in a way that shows that, instead of the way that we tend to walk through communication and relationship. I have a very active TikTok and YouTube where I just offer love, support, encouragement, humor. I'm very goofy for those who are interested.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for all that you're doing in the world to help us to heal and to love better, receive more, give more, just live more.
Yeah. And to really cherish the relationships that we have. So
They're
beautiful.
a gift. And it's important that we remember that we're a gift to everyone else as well.
That's right.
That's right. Amen. Thanks for listening to Sacred Rebellion. We love connecting with you in this way. If you want to join the rebellion and enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Sacred Rebellion.
Give us a rating and review, and please recommend us to your tribe. Follow us on social media at Sacred Rebellion Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Until next time, stay curious,
Stay courageous, and most of all, stay rebellious.